In a absolute heist of all proportions, De'Aaron Fox has been traded to the San Antonio Spurs with Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings get Zach LaVine, Side Sissoko, 3 first-round picks, which are not really first-round picks. We'll talk about that. 3 second-round picks, and then the Bulls get Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, their own first-round pick back from San Antonio. Let's just start from the Spurs perspective. Amazing. A masterclass. Absolute cinema. I don't know how you pulled this off. I just figured that when De'Aaron Fox said he wanted to go to the Spurs, or it was rumored or whatever, I assumed that it was going to happen in the offseason, in all honesty, and if it did happen in the offseason, I figured Devin Vassell was going to be on the move, and I worried about Steph Castle getting moved as well, but I didn't think the Spurs were going to give up a guy that's that valuable to them. I figured it was going to be some combination of Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins, like maybe even Mamu, even though he's a minimum contract, maybe Blake Wesley, he's also on a minimum. Guys like that were going to be on the move, that the Kings kind of wanted to take a chance on. I know they said they didn't really want any super young guys. They wanted win-now talent and draft capital. Well, that's what they got. They got Zach LaVine, Side Sissoko, 3 first-round picks, 3 second-round picks. Again, I want to focus on the Spurs for a second. You got De'Aaron Fox in a deal in which the Atlanta Hawks gave up more to you for DeJounte Murray. Now, I know DeJounte Murray didn't request a trade, but it was kind of an awkward situation when you traded him because you were trying to tank, and it was kind of an inevitability, and he knew it was coming. But you get De'Aaron Fox for 3 fake first-round picks, 3 second-round picks, and you give up role players that weren't even in your plans for the future anyway, in Zach Collins and Trey Jones. Though Trey Jones was great last season, he stepped up in a big way. They didn't really use him a whole lot this season. He's small. He's a defensive liability in a lot of ways. Chris Paul pretty much did his exact role and did it better. Obviously, Chris Paul is going to do it better. Zach Collins, he was older. He didn't fit the timeline. Spurs fans hated his guts anyway. There's a gnat in my room. Yeah, you get Fox, a guy who's an excellent downhill creator. He has a bit of a shaky three-pointer, but you don't really worry about that when your team is formulated around a 7'5" guy that can shoot logo threes. What does it matter, right? What does it matter? Fox can deal the ball around. He can get to his mid-range, which is just absolutely pure. He was the clutch player of the year, a year, 2 years ago? He's just incredible. He's an incredible talent. And the fact that he just kind of fell into your lap when you kind of missed out on guys like Austin Reeves in the offseason, and you kind of struck out on those rumors with Trae Young, who was supposedly going to be out of Atlanta. Obviously, that didn't end up happening. To get a guy that wants to be in San Antonio, that only put you down as his preferential location to move to, like, that is incredible. The San Antonio Spurs have really come from a team that was bunch of young guys, didn't really have a whole lot of talent on the roster. It was looking kind of rough. Keldon Johnson was your main guy. He was averaging 17 points on not great efficiency. And it's just like a complete turnaround. I mean, they're doing an excellent job. The worst way I could see this panning out is if De'Aaron Fox ends up in a sort of similar situation that Kristaps Porzingis was in with the Mavericks, whatever it was, 6 years ago. Obviously, that ended horrifically. And that would be because he was injured. But I think this is an entirely different situation. You're building around a younger guy, and to be honest, Wemby's ready. I mean, he's ready. Everyone knew that. You went out and got Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul in the offseason just to give you a little bit of veteran leadership, and it just feels like this team is going to be ready by next season, and not necessarily contend, but be a solid playoff team if you make some better moves in the offseason. And it's just like, it's all coming together right now, and I'm very impressed that you got De'Aaron Fox, an arguably top 20 player in the NBA, for none of your good young players. Vassell is still on the team. Castle is still on the team. Keldon Johnson is still on the team. All these guys that are going to contribute in a big way with De'Aaron Fox here are still on the team. In a lot of ways, Vassell is kind of, an asset you can go out and use to go get someone else. I understand, Spurs fans love Vassell, but he's injured all the time. You just paid him a lot of money. Like, he is technically expendable, but he's your shooter now, and it gets complicated. But what I will say is this looks great for the Spurs. It just looks great. There's nothing else to say except a complete heist. Kings. What do I say to the Sacramento Kings? This 2025 Charlotte first-round pick, it might say 2025 Charlotte first-rounder. It's not. It's a top 14 protected Charlotte 2025 first-round pick. I don't know if you've watched the Charlotte Hornets this season or watched lack thereof of their players playing, because a lot of injuries have happened in Charlotte this season. They're terrible. They're a really bad basketball team. I will bet everything in my life that pick is going to be in the top 14. I don't even know if it's possible for them to get out of the bottom 14. to be honest. I don't know. Like, they're in the lottery. They have to be. There is no scenario in which they aren't. So because of that, this pick is going to translate to two 2026 second round picks, or it's like their 26-27 second round pick. So just remove that first round pick off of the board. So you've got 2 first round picks, 5 second round picks. That's really what this trade is. Then you start to think, wait, 2027 San Antonio Spurs pick, that's when Fox has his extension, but you're going to assume that everything is going just fine, right? Because you don't make this trade without having him in your plans for the next 5 to 10 years, right? It's Victor Wembanyama, it's De'Aaron Fox. This team is going to be good in 2027. I feel pretty good about saying that. I'm going to knock on wood, but I feel pretty good about saying that. So that pick is essentially useless. It's going to be in the 20s, so not a high quality first round pick at all. 2031 Minnesota does get interesting if Anthony Edwards is gone, and it's impossible to predict that far into the future, so it could have some value. It could have some real value. Second round picks are Chicago's, Denver's, and Sacramento got their own 2028 second round pick back. Whoop-de-doo. Not a great haul for De'Aaron Fox. I understand you're in kind of a difficult situation, but if that's the case, right, just wait till the offseason and do it then. I don't understand the rush. What is the rush here? I know that it's an awkward locker room situation, but De'Aaron Fox has been such a high quality pro that I don't think it would ever be an issue. And yes, you're just going to admit that this season is a wash, but the trade you did is admitting that it's kind of a wash anyway. The way Zach LaVine fits in on the Kings, it makes them the Chicago Bulls of the West. And I'm not saying that they're as bad as the Chicago Bulls, because they're not. Not at all. But the Kings, as compared to the Western Conference and the quality of teams over there, and the Bulls as compared to the Eastern Conference, the Kings are the Bulls of the West right now. They've got a lot of similar players. Sabonis is better than Vucevic. This is going to sound weird, but I don't know how to say this correctly. Sabonis has been as better than Vucevic this season as the Western Conference has been to the Eastern Conference. Like, the West is just so much better that it doesn't matter when you add a talent like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan to your team, because you quite literally just become the Chicago Bulls of 2 years ago. Or last year. You literally just become that exact team. But this move does not have you on the upward trend. If anything, it keeps you right here, or you've moved a little bit lower, and these first round picks are not real first round picks. Like, you're hoping that 2031 ends up being a good pick, that 2027 is not going to be, and that is not a first round pick from Charlotte. So what is the goal here, right? What's the goal for the Kings? I understand you've been horrible for 20 years, right? And that's not your fault, Kings fans. Obviously, if you're watching this video, that's not your fault. You were terrible for 20 years. Why? That's not on you. It's on the organization. You don't want to do a full teardown rebuild. So you trade for Zach LaVine, who's been awesome this season, by the way. He's been amazing. I think, honestly, in a lot of ways, if there wasn't so much competition for the backcourt in the East, he should have been an all-star. He's been awesome. Efficient, complete bounce-back season. But what I will say is he doesn't answer the questions that the Kings have. If anything, he just brings more questions to the table. So now you've got a bunch of guys that are pretty good. Sabonis, pretty good. Can he be a defensive anchor in the playoffs? Still yet to be seen. Zach LaVine, going to play his ass off. He's not as good as De'Aaron Fox is. He's awesome. He's really awesome, but he's not as good as Fox. Malik Monk, can he be that point guard offensive engine? He has been when De'Aaron Fox has been out, but can he do that consistently? Keegan Murray is basically become the Patrick Williams of the West. Obviously, he's much better, but he cannot shoot the ball to save his life lately. I'm not even going to say lately. It's been like the last year and a half. He just has not been shooting the 3-ball well. So I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. The Sacramento Kings are in a very awkward situation in which I don't imagine them ever getting out of the play-in. But is that enough for their franchise? They've kind of indicated that it is. They could go out and make another deal before the trade deadline ends, but I don't see that happening. I don't really know who's out there. They could go get Cam Johnson now, maybe, and that makes you semi-interesting, right? It's just a mess. I don't love this trade for the Kings. If I'm feeling an A+ for the Spurs, I'm feeling a D+, maybe more of a C-. Like, you just barely passed. This is just passable enough to where you can lie to your fans and say, yeah, we got a good value back. Which technically you did. Zach LaVine is a great player, but it doesn't make you a better team in the long run. Bulls, you spent all of this season watching Zach LaVine rebuild his stock, become a positive asset, and you trade him away for Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, who is essentially just a bad contract now, and their own 2025 pick. Look, I get it. You want your own pick back. That way you can control your own destiny. That way you can tank even though you haven't been tanking all season. And when you tank, you can get a lottery pick that is your own. You can be where you belong in the lottery. But Zach LaVine is worth more than this. To the city of Chicago, and also just in general as a basketball player, you trade Zach LaVine away essentially as a contract dump, right? You get Zach Collins back, a guy that's going to be on your roster. I think he's got another year on his deal and then it's done. Trey Jones, not in your future, probably not even in the rotation right now. Kevin Huerter, just a kind of a nothing guy right now. I wish the best for Kevin Huerter, and I hope he finds his shot again. But even then, he doesn't fit your timeline if you're going through a rebuild. And then you get your 2025 pick back. Good move. It's good to get your pick back. But one first-round pick and a bunch of all right to bad contract role players is not enough for Zach LaVine. So to me, Kings lose out. Not quite as bad as the Bulls. The Bulls get a D here. Spurs get an A+. Incredible trade. De'Aaron Fox is going to be awesome in San Antonio, and I'm really jealous of the way they run as a front office right now. But honestly, I'm jealous of any team. I would rather be a Bulls fan right now. Anyway, y'all take care. Have a good one.